Now, I love that Luke stole my opening line, because just so everyone knows, Stephen Decker was the one that coined the term gaggle of drunk ladies. He's the one that taught us that framing. But what do you do when they walk up to your booth and they're just all scattered and they're all excited and they're like knives or Cutco or pans or something? It gets exciting because you're like, oh, this could be awesome or this could be terrible. It's my turn, so I'm going to deal with it. So basically, I've tried to figure out the best way that I can maximize that interaction to actually get something beneficial where myself and the gaggle, we all win, and they all buy a bunch of stuff, and everybody's happy. So the first thing I'm going to say when that does happen is it's okay to just take a breath and try to relax for a second. You don't want to get too excited too fast. Curtis is probably one of the best people I've ever seen do this. I know he's looking right at me when I say his name. But Curtis has this really good skill when he's working at the booth where he can look at somebody and he can almost just immediately identify exactly what they want from the Cutco booth. It's almost scary when they walk up and he's like, oh, can I show you these pans? In his little Curtis way. And, but it's that's exactly what they were walking up there to look at. So I've watched him, I've worked with him a ton, and I was like, okay, when you're working with these groups of people, when you can start to identify very quickly, the person who's in charge, what they're actually coming up to the booth for, or what they may or may not be interested in, everything else can go a lot smoother, a lot quicker. And you don't have to waste a whole lot of time trying to wrangle these people. My biggest fear whenever groups walk up is that, especially when I'm working with people, if there's 2 or 3 or 4 of us in the booth, that they're gonna start spreading out to everyone and just start getting in the way and trying to just cause a ruckus, and I don't want that. So the main thing that I'll do first off right in the beginning is after I've taken that breath and I've relaxed for a second, I'm just guys, who here owns Cutco? Please raise your hand. I really want to just get them to start focusing on me. I want to get their attention on me, and I want to start to figure out what am I actually dealing with here right now. I love it whenever a few of them raise their hands because they're like, oh, me, or oh, me. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. You got to fill out our drawing slip, please. And they're like, oh, what's the drawing? I'm like, oh, for our past customers, guys. And they're like, oh, they get excited. I'm going to start using that energy for me. And they're like, the people don't raise their hand. I'm like, guys, do your friends not own Cutco? They're like, no, they're lame. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's okay. Should we let them enter the drawing as well? Are they worth signing up for this? Because basically what I'm trying to do in this moment is I want to get something in their hand that gets them anchored down to me and it gets them attached to what I'm actually trying to do, which is to get them to focus so I can try to sell them something. So get the attention as quick as possible. Get them excited to work with you. If nobody owns Cutco, it's very simple. It's okay, cool. Out of all of y'all, whose house do you go to whenever you have a holiday event or a big get-together or a party or something like that? Who's the one hosting? Because again, I'm trying to identify specific people. I've noticed whenever you have a group of people come up to the booth, there's always one specific individual who's almost considered the trendsetter for the group. They're the person that other people tend to follow when they're doing stuff. It's oh, well, she bought this, or he bought this, so we want to buy it. This is the grill guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows this is the brand we're supposed to have, so that's why we came here with him to check it out. So when I'm asking these questions, I'm being very intentional about watching how all of them react, and I'm always looking for subtle things that they're doing to let me know, okay, this is where I need to focus the majority of my attention at the moment. It's funny because when you ask those questions, it's just open-ended and it's for everybody, but they'll all kind of look towards somebody to see how they respond to it. And when they look towards that person, that's the person that I'm like, okay, you're who I need to really pull in right now. But once you figure out who those people are, and sometimes it's one person, sometimes it's a couple, it's okay, hey, Kim, come here. Let me show you something really quickly. I've noticed a lot of times too, when you have a group of people, you want to kind of do your normal approach, and it's the worst thing you can do whenever there's a lot of them in that moment. I was talking to Seth Kinzer, and I was like, hey man, how do you work with groups? How do you handle it? He's like, oh, I'm terrible at it. I hate it. And I was like, why? He's like, because I talk too much and they won't focus, and then they just drift away. So you don't have that 10 or 15 minutes you really want to kind of try to get to hey, here's how Cutco is, this is our guarantee, and this is our big power intro, and let me show you our different options, and here, now cut this leather. You don't have those extra minutes to kind of do that. So I want to do a lot of the things that I would wait till later. I'm going to start to do them immediately. I'm going to cut leather very fast. I'm gonna cut a penny really quickly. I'm gonna try to get all of them to have a knife in their hand to cut a potato with a cheese knife, or I'm gonna show them like, hey, have you seen the new knife that Cutco's already come out with? Oh my gosh, what is it? Oh, it's the 4-inch veggie knife. I wanna get something in their hand as quick as I can, whether it's a clipboard, a drawing slip, a knife, something, so that way they're interacting with me and they're starting to at least focus briefly. Because really, I want to just sell them something as fast as possible. I don't care if it's one single knife or it's a paring knife or I'm just getting their information for a service event because they need their knife sharpened. Whatever it is, I want something in their hand to get them there. And then I can start focusing on the other people around them. So I'm trying to get one person locked in, and then it's like, hey, while you fill this out real quick, I'm gonna see if they also need to get any service. Oh, they don't own Cutco? Hey, you don't have any Cutco? Have you ever tried theirs? Can I show you something really quick? Like, here, hold this knife. This is like something you can buy anywhere. Cut this leather for me. Now cut it with this knife. This is our Cutco knife. Wouldn't it be nice? Could you use any upgrades in your kitchen? Like, what can I do to keep it simple, but to get them there? I'll also ask other questions, like, who's the best cook in the group? Who's the person that you're excited whenever they make something for everybody? Who are the ones that always want to host? Who are the ones that they have the big families? Who are the ones that entertain all the time? Who are the party people? But once we kind of start to get through that process, I can really start to, again, tie these people down and get them excited about like, okay, this is the next big thing. Now, the other thing we'd ever want to do is like, how many times have y'all had those people all at the booth? And you're thinking, oh man, I'm about to sell like 5 homemaker sets and this is going to be amazing. And you're like, hey, you know what? If everybody here wants to buy a set, we can do this really extra special deal. And it's like, oh, but I don't really know if everybody's actually interested. And now I've thrown out this option where everybody wants to get a discount, but they only get the discount if these 2 people also participate in this deal. So we don't want to jump the gun too quickly. You want to actually gauge where everybody is really at. So again, I keep asking those open-ended questions. All right, so I know you already own Cutco. You've never heard of it, but you've been thinking about it. You're actually considering buying some as well. Like, if y'all were to get some stuff, like, would you be ever considering opening or upgrading your current set? We have a program for that. Oh, what does that look like? So I'll show them the brochure, and it's like, hey, you've never seen Cutco before. Can I show you our 3 most popular sets? Like, the big thing I'm trying to do is, again, I'm trying to acknowledge each and every person and meet them exactly where they're at without overwhelming them with 17 different things. Like, I've done that before where I had the person come up and it was like a mother and a daughter and her 2 daughters, and they're like, oh, we're all thinking about getting Cutco for the first time. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. We have this really cool program. If you all end up getting a set, we can actually do some really cool exclusive deals because we're all considering buying a set right now. And the mom's like, oh, well, I'm considering it. I don't think they can afford it. Like, will I still get the deal if I'm the only one that's going to purchase? And I'm like, oh, well, of course. Like, so I'm shooting myself in the foot before we ever actually figured out what was going on in the first place. Now, the other thing too, though, if you focus too much on one single individual whenever you have the group of people in front of you, the other people start to drift. And that's why, again, I want to keep acknowledging other people and ask them different questions as well. Because how many times have you had the really good people in front of you and you're focusing so much on this one specific individual because you think this person will actually pull the trigger, but then their friend starts to say, hey, we're going to keep going because we want to go see this other thing. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll come with you. And then you got nothing. You got to have a really exciting moment and watch it leave. Because that's a painful time. So again, that's why you want to make sure everybody's involved and everyone's interacting and you're actually acknowledging people. Like, I've seen it happen, again, to myself. I'll use myself as the example, but it was like, there was the one person who was actually considering it. Her 2 friends were there and they were just like, hey, we still want to go get a beer. Are you going to come with us? And she's like, oh, well, yeah, of course. And I was like, oh, well, do you want to fish? She's like, no, don't worry. I'm going to go with them real quick and then I'll be back. And I was like, oh. Are you sure? Can I show you one more thing really quickly? She's like, no, I'll be right back. We're going to go grab a drink, and we're going to see you here in just a few. And I was like, they're not coming back. And it was a little rough. I was a little sad about it. So again, with her friends, I'm just like, hey, does she deserve good knives? Do you think this is something that would be beneficial for her? Do you think this is something that she would actually be excited about getting? If you were her, what color would you pick on the knife set? So I want to include them in the conversation so they're still entertained and they're not left there being like, okay, well, since I'm not doing anything here, I'm going to go. Simple things can make them feel valued in that moment, and they'll want to stay there to help her make the right decision. And I'm like, hey, their opinions matter just as much as yours. Now, if we can start to tie them in there, and the other people are interested as well, because I will ask those questions also. It's like, okay, hey, I know you're really interested in getting your set. You think this is where you would go, or you're gonna buy this one knife. Like, it's always nice, because if I can get them to buy just a single knife, like, hey, here's a cheese knife, here's how it works. Hey, do you think they should get one also? Do y'all ever go to their house? Do they ever have any family over? Do you think they should also jump in on this? And she's like, oh yeah, she would love it. I think she's a great cook. We're always going to her house. She's always sharing recipes with us. I want to use the enthusiasm from the original person actually making that purchase to try to transfer it to the next one. So I'm gonna try to play off of the fact that she's actually pulling the trigger right here, right now, and I wanna see if I can use her to tell her friend that she should also get it. Hey, by the way, since 2 of y'all are deciding to pull the trigger on this, do we wanna have her be left out, or should she just get one too? Like, and they're like, oh, well, of course she should. Now, do we all wanna get the same color, or do we wanna have different ones so you can't ever go to her house and think, hey, that's my knife? Because like some people like the white, the dark, the red, we want to make sure. We make simple jokes, we want to keep them entertained. Different people do need different things though, so even though one person might be just here to pick up the one thing, and she's like, oh, I love the idea of getting this, I want to get this knife, but I think I would use a few extra things, could you show it to me real quick? Like, absolutely, let me go ahead and give her this clipboard. I still use order forms, I know some people don't. I'm a big order form person, because I can hand them that order form, and they can start filling this out, and then I can actually move on to the next person, and they're distracted. They're gonna sit there and wait, they're gonna fill out everything, and I actually have a few minutes to focus on this person and start going through what they may actually be interested in. But understanding like they might not all, just because I want them to all buy the same thing, they're not always all gonna buy the same thing. So like there's a lot of different scenarios that can happen whenever we're actually in these moments, and it's just being prepared to ask the right qualifying questions so that way you can actually meet them with where they actually want to be met, and you can fix their needs if they're the same or if they're different. Now, when we do the bundled or the group deals though, if everybody is thinking like, hey, I need to get a set, and I want to get a set, and I want to get a set, and that's where we're all actually possibly considering doing something, I won't just say, hey, if we all buy it, like here's a really good, I'm gonna give you all an extra special deal. I'll tell them, hey, we actually have a specific program. It's called our Friends and Family program. Here's this cool brochure that people really made sure we have. So the cool thing is, since we're considering doing like a Friends and Family bundle, if we all did decide to pull the trigger today, since we're all considering getting our own knife set, we could actually take full advantage of this, and we could all save a few extra bucks. Would y'all want to see what it would look like if we did all 3 decide to say yes? Because then I'm using a very specific thing. I'm not just saying, hey, because you're all buying it, but like, I'm going to tie you into a reason on why we can actually give this deal away. It's not just, oh, hey, we're all here together, but it's like, oh, they see something. It's nice, like with the upgrade brochure. Like, hey, we have this really cool upgrade program. Here's the brochure. We have this really cool family program. Since there's more than one of y'all considering actually pulling the trigger on this today, here's a reason why we can do something extra special. The extra special deal I will normally do is, if they're buying a knife set, I'm gonna give them a few gadgets for free. If they're buying just like a basic homemaker, or a homemaker plus 8, I'm gonna give them some scissors. If they're still on the fence, I'll give them all 50 bucks off. I'm not afraid to do something a little bit extra to get those extra things. You know, Brian always says, I'll never let my pride stand in my paycheck. If $50 is the reason that I make $700, I'm okay with that every time. But basically, I want things to be smooth and simple for any customer anytime. I want every single interaction that we have. I want to be able to kind of, basically I'm going to facilitate the conversation for them and try to navigate them, but I want to kind of steer them towards me and then towards actually considering like, hey, this is the thing I want. I'm here to pick it up really quick. I'm going to pull the trigger on it. All right, now that my friend, they should also do this with me. But sometimes it doesn't work out that way, sometimes it does. It's just, again, like Chelsea was saying before, we're never getting emotionally attached to any single interaction, but still trying to be that person that can help everyone and acknowledge everyone at the exact same time. Now, the big things that I always try to remember when I'm going through this is acknowledging all of them. I want to identify the buyers. I want to anchor them as quickly as possible. And I want to get them tied into me, as focused on me as much as I can. I want to have fun. And I just want to sell a lot of Cutco. I want them to be excited about selling it, or about buying it, and I want them to be excited about being able to work with me. And I don't want to be a distraction for anybody else I'm working with, because I did the right thing and I kept their attention here and they weren't being scattered everywhere else. So don't be overwhelmed. Have fun. sell a lot of Cutco, and enjoy what you do here. That's all I got.